We're going to work on, it's known as order of operations, but we know it better as BEDMAS. Hopefully you guys remember this. If not, we're going to go through it again. And while we go through BEDMAS, we're also going to go through a couple fraction rules. Okay, so as you see, we have a couple fractions in this question. Now, when I have fractions in a question, along with whole numbers, one of the best things to do is to actually turn everything into a fraction. Does anyone know how I can turn the number 2 into a fraction? That's right. You put any whole number as a fraction by just putting it over 1. And the reason this works is because if we divide a number by 1, it doesn't change. So let's go on a calculator quickly. Let's say I take the number 7 here. If I take 7 and I divide it by the number 1, my answer, when I push equals, is still the number 7. So we haven't changed anything. But we've put everything as a fraction, so it'll be a little easier to abide by all of their rules. Okay? Now, according to BEDMAS, what's the first thing I deal with? Brackets. And in fact, I have 2 sets of brackets. I have this one here, and I even have a smaller set in here. Now, when we look inside, how many terms are inside this bracket? Just 1 term. So there's really nothing to simplify in that bracket. All it's really letting us know is that this term is negative. Okay? So we think of this bracket itself as 1 term. Okay? And then we're going to deal with it according to the other bracket. So we have 3 over 5 subtract negative 5 over 6. Okay, that can be very confusing. I have 2 operations beside each other. So with a rule with integers, and this actually plays in part to our multiplying integers, I want you guys to remember a couple rules. When I multiply a positive term times a positive term, does anyone know what we get? Yeah, our answer will be positive. If I multiply a negative term times a negative term, that's right. And if I do a negative term times a positive term, that's right, we're going to get a negative term. Okay, now these rules will actually help us simplify adding and subtracting of positive and negative numbers. If I have 2 operations beside each other and there's no number between them, we're going to use these rules to turn these 2 operations into 1 operation. Okay, so because there's no number here, I have a negative beside a negative. According to those rules for multiplying, what can I change that operation to? A positive. Great. So we're going to rewrite this question so it's a little simpler to look at. We have 2 over 1, subtract bracket 3 over 5, and these 2 negative signs now become a positive term. And since I've done that, I no longer need this bracket over here. So we're left with 5 over 6. Okay. So now this bracket, this question is much simpler to look at, just by simplifying those 2 operations. Now what I have is 3 over 5 plus 5 over 6. Well, in fraction rules, when I'm adding 2 fractions, I need a common denominator, or the number on the bottom has to be the exact same. Okay, so we're going to take these to the side here. Actually, no, we'll just keep going down. We're going to rewrite them with a common multiple. Does anyone know a common multiple of 5 and 6? 30, that's right. What would I multiply 5 by to get to 30? Okay, so I know I multiply it by 6. And what would I multiply 6 by to get to 30? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what we're going to need to do is I need to multiply both the top and the bottom of these fractions by those terms to get a common denominator. Thank you. So we have this number 5 here. We said we have to multiply it by 6. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So 3 times 6 will give us 18. Divided by 5 times 6 gives us 30. Perfect. Still have that positive sign. And in the other one, we need to multiply these 2 by 5. Well, 5 times 5 gives us 25. And 6 times 5 gives us 30. So now, if you guys take a look at these fractions, our denominators are the same. So we can add them together. When adding or subtracting fractions, the denominator is going to stay the same. It doesn't change at all. So we still have 2 over 1. Subtract, and we'll keep those brackets. Our answer is going to be above 30. The denominator doesn't change. But we are going to add the 2 tops. 18 plus 25. And that's going to give us 43, I think. Okay?
You don't change the bottom one, right?
Don't change the bottom. Only when you're multiplying or dividing will that change. Okay? So since we've already changed it, when you're adding or subtracting fractions, you keep the denominator the exact same. Okay, so now again I have a subtraction question. But our denominators are not the same. Well, luckily this one is 1, and to change it to a number that is a multiple of 30, I can just use the number 30 itself. So I'm going to multiply the first fraction, the top and the bottom, by 30. 2 times 30 will give us 60, and 1 times 30 will give us 30. And this bracket here, we just wrote it in so we knew that was the answer to the previous part. We don't really need it anymore. So we can have subtracted by 43 over 30. Again, because I'm adding or subtracting, my answer will still be above 30. And when we subtract those two terms, 60 subtract 47, anyone know?
17.
Excellent. And that's it. Here's our final answer. A lot of steps. Now, some of you guys may be able to do these in less steps, and if you can skip a few, jump ahead, that's fine. But to stay organized, it's not a bad idea to always write out every single step we do.